spent a lot of time talking about belonging and how important it is for you as a brand to ensure you're making the people you serve feel like they belong with you. But how do you go about doing that exactly? Well, my guest today has some ideas for you. After this short break, you'll hear my conversation with Lydia Michael, author of Brand Love. Lydia has created a framework for you that will not only help more people love your brand, pretty good, right? But also feel like they belong with you in the process. Did you know that most businesses only use 20% of their data? That's like reading a book with most of the pages torn out or paying for a coffee that's just 1/5 full. Point is, you miss a lot unless you use HubSpot. Their customer platform gives you access to the data you need to grow your business. The insights trapped in emails, call logs, and transcripts, all that unstructured data that makes all the difference. Because when you know more, you grow more. And when you get a full cup of coffee, you can do more too. But I digress. Visit HubSpot.com today. Hey, Lydia, thanks so much for joining me today. How are you?
Hi, Sonia. I'm good. How about you?
I'm doing well. I'm super excited to dig into this. I've been spending some time with your book, and I love the title. It's Brand Love. But before we get too far into that, tell the people, who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, so on a day-to-day, I run my company Blended Collective, which is a multicultural marketing and brand consultancy. And I'm also the author of Brand Love, as you just said, and most recently also started as an adjunct professor teaching digital marketing and multicultural marketing and branding in the fall. So I'm excited for that one.
Very cool. Well, okay, so let's start there because I use the terminology inclusive marketing. Other people use other terminology, including multicultural marketing. So
Yeah.
I'm just super curious. Can you, what is your definition? How do you find multicultural marketing?
Yeah, and even within that space, I found that every company that offers multicultural marketing defines it differently and delivers different outcomes because of that.
Mhm.
So for us, it's mostly focused around the different cultures that we come in touch with on a day to day basis. It truly is culture. So, not so much the company culture, but more so your ethnicity, your nationality, your upbringing. What is the culture that really defines who you are and the environment that you sort of came up in and that you continue to navigate in? So, very simple terms for us is bringing in cultural elements into the marketing because we understand that 20 years from now, half of the US population is going to be multicultural. And because of that, it's so important that companies and brands understand how to cater, how to genuinely cater to all of these audiences. So again, for us, it's mostly the focus on the cultural background and the cultural integration between that and brands.
Yeah, I'm curious. How well do you feel like brands are doing that today?
So it depends on which elements you look at. I'm finding that a lot of times, and people get it mixed up with DEI, and you mentioned inclusive marketing, and then
Mhm.
you have multicultural marketing and international marketing. There's so much terminology that is used interchangeably. And I think because of that, there's a lot of overlap, but then there's also sometimes, I don't even know if there's an incorrect understanding. I think it is whatever you want to put out into the world is
Yeah.
how you understand it, and that's going to be reflected in your work. But again, for us, it's more so focused around the culture. If you look at the multicultural market, by definition, typically that entails, the African American market, Latinx or Hispanic, and Asian Americans. That's the
Mhm.
true multicultural market if you look at it from a consumer perspective and you look at all the reports and research that's done in this space.
Right.
It's that. For us, for instance, at Blended Collective, it even goes beyond that.
Okay.
That's just to say that those are the major multicultural market, right? That we're
Mhm.
sort of moving towards. But of course, we know that there's a lot more,
Yeah.
and for a small business and for a local business, that might look a lot different than what you see in the research and the reports.
Yeah, and I imagine that it also varies differently depending upon the brand's customer base and where they're located, because that
Exactly.
can change drastically. The population makeup in Canada, there's a lot more different cultures represented than you might see in the US. So yeah, I imagine that that's going to change depending on, which is, why we need to make sure that we have a good understanding of who our customers are.
Yeah, so important.
All right. So, what is brand love and why is it important for marketers to focus on creating it?
So you probably saw this in the book, but I actually took it upon myself to define brand love because there isn't really this consensus on what brand love really is, right? And to some people, it sounds like this fluffy topic and this fluffy subject. They're like, what's brand love? Well, brand love to me, in simple terms, is an emotional connection between a customer and a brand. And what's really important is that we're creating meaningful, long lasting relationships with brand love, but that we also are focused on deep desire and affection when we're building those brands.
Hmm.
The outcome of brand love, ultimately, what it means is brand loyalty and advocacy. And there's a lot of different ways to get there, right? And so sometimes people throw around the word of, I have brand love in my company and all of those
Yeah.
things. But what that really means, that's the breakdown of the brand love drivers that I introduce in the book, is there's so many different factors and so many different drivers that contribute to the bigger picture of brand love that ultimately leads to that loyalty that everybody's looking for beyond profit, of course.
Right, right. So I spend a lot of time over the years thinking about customer loyalty as like the holy grail that brands are looking for because there are just a number of reasons. People come back to you over and over again. They are going to tell their friends about you, etc. Now I can imagine that brands are spending a lot of time thinking about customer loyalty, but they're not necessarily doing it or thinking about it or looking at it on a breakdown, particularly from underrepresented and underserved communities, to see if that's happening at the same rates. Have you seen any differences in the ways in which brands are performing and achieving brand love when they're looking at their different types of customers that they have?
So I think, most of it, and I think a lot of it is reflected through DEI initiatives, right? That
Hmm.
people try to focus on for specific customer segments. So I think that that is a key focus there. But I think in
Hmm.
terms of, go back to your question a little bit more, if you can elaborate.
Sure. So I'm wondering if, as you are seeing brand or working with brands and helping them to achieve brand love, do they have to pull different levers to
Hmm.
achieve
Yeah.
brand love, particularly with underrepresented and underserved communities? Are they like, I'm imagining that people are like, okay, we're going to do some initiatives to get at brand love overall. But it seems like, there are times where it might not happen organically at the same rate
Yeah.
with different people from different communities.
Yeah, I think there is. So I think part of it is the transparency in business practices is something that's really important. And I think that that contributes to how even underrepresented communities feel like they're being more involved or integrated in the work and in the company.
Hmm.
So that transparency is really important. And also just the clear commitment
Yeah.
to what they want to serve,
Okay.
what they want to serve for, right?
Okay.
So just making sure that that is communicated. So in that level of transparency and even just sharing that clear commitment publicly, I think that those two things combined create a lot of trust,
Yeah.
or they at least put you on that right path to start creating trust with your company.
Yeah.
And trust is another big element that helps us achieve brand love. And really, in the book, in the eight brand love stages that I introduce, trust is sort of out of all the eight elements on that path. It's number five, and
Yeah.
it's that tipping point.
Yeah.
It's that tipping point where the relationship can either change for the better, it can really make or break that relationship.
Sure.
And I think, with those factors in place, I think that that has a big, big role in that.
Yeah. All right. So we kind of been dancing around this a little bit in our opening conversation, but I'm interested to hear your point of view on what the actual connection is between cultural inclusion and brand love.
Cultural inclusion is really important, and culture is a strong, it's almost like this red thread in my book that I talk about that connects everything around brand love.
Hmm.
And that was really the big differentiator and the main reason why I wanted to write this book, because I approach it from a very multicultural perspective, even with the case studies and the global brand examples, right? It's not just giving you local US based companies and examples, but it dives deep into culture. And I do that to show successes, but also failures and
Hmm.
how you use culture appropriately or not that can affect your brand in a positive way or sometimes not. But I think using cultural inclusivity really enhances brand love by resonating on a deeper level, on a
Yeah.
more personal level with a diverse audience. So, brands that really understand how to embrace that inclusivity are also looked at as more trustworthy, but also as more authentic, which goes back to the two elements that I was talking about in being clear in your clear commitment,
Yeah.
being clear in your commitment, but also transparent in your business practices.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so you alluded to these drivers that of brand love. I believe there's 8 of them. Or no, there's more than
And in
those,
the
but
book,
there's okay. So
there's more.
yeah, there's a good number of them. So can you walk us through a couple of what some of these drivers are that helps brands achieve this that they need to be thinking about?
Yeah, so I ultimately decided to select 10 drivers on the emotional side and the rational side. So all of
Uh-huh.
this inspiration came from the part of our brain that is one, the emotional side is the right side, that typically is labeled as the more creative side. And then our left side, the rational side, which is known for the more logical and analytical side.
Mhm.
And taking inspiration from that concept, I created the brand love drivers.
Okay.
Uh, the right side are the emotional drivers, and the left side are the rational drivers. And I selected 10, not to say that there are only 10, because
Yeah.
there's certainly way more than that. But for the sake of the book and the length, I had to, shorten it a little bit and make sure that I provide examples for each one of those. The emotional side is really focused around drivers such as that trigger the emotional aspect. So, drivers such as authenticity, nostalgia, trust, empathy, right? All of those different elements that help drive brand love, hence the name brand love drivers. So, those are on one side. But then we have the rational drivers that are equally important because it's not enough to just tap into our emotional side, right? It's always this balance of emotional drivers meets rational drivers. Rational drivers such as accessibility, convenience, relevance, differentiation, right? All of those things that also really help us connect and
Mhm.
choose a brand over another brand in a competitive space, especially. But a lot of times we don't realize that it's a combination of all of that. And the more drivers you use,
Yeah.
the better, right? So the more authentic I am, the more trusting I am, the more accessible I am, like all of those different things. And so when I talk about the drivers in the book, sometimes I take one company example and I connect it deeply with one of the drivers because it's so synonymous with that. Like Patagonia in the book, is very much embodies purpose and sustainability at the core of who they are.
Mhm.
I don't even think that you could talk
Mhm.
about this brand without talking about purpose and sustainability, right?
Yeah.
They almost
Right.
own those drivers. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean that they don't have any of the other drivers. Of course they do, right?
Right.
For a brand to be this successful and that long lasting. But those were sort of the ones that define that brand the most.
So I've always been a big advocate of brands moving beyond just the transactional approach to marketing and engaging with their customers to really develop that deeper emotional connection. So I was really excited to see that you had covered that so well in the book. I'm curious from your experience partnering with brands and just kind of observing and analyzing, where have you seen them most struggle when it comes to that emotional connection and building it and establishing it?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think a lot of different answers for that.
Okay.
One of them I honestly think is the lack of being human, like truly
Mhm.
understanding that on the other side of somebody buying your product or your service is another human being. And the importance of understanding how to connect with them in such a genuine and authentic way that will automatically drive that transaction no matter what. Because sometimes people are buying who they are. They're not even buying
Mhm.
what you're offering. They're buying something that they see themselves mirrored in. And, of course, it depends on the category and how big the purchase is and all of those things. But you think about things like cars sometimes or for
Mhm.
women, it's purses or even just anything that you sort of invest in. If I see myself in that, if I see parts of who I am, parts of my values reflected in that, it really resonates with me. And so it makes it easy for me to buy into the brand anyway. But I think the engagement is where a lot of them struggle because there's a lack of just being human.
Yeah.
There's a lack of even empathy sometimes. And those are some of the emotional drivers, for brands
Yeah.
is really
Yeah.
showing them that, hey, we're just as human as you are. We get it. We understand you. We're here with you. Like we're on this journey together. And that's where I think brands could probably do a better, just put in more effort to create a deeper and more emotional connection.
Absolutely. I think that empathy, like you can't really do good marketing, period, let alone inclusive marketing without empathy. It's the foundation of doing it well. And you can't see other people and make them belong if you don't kind of have that human aspect incorporated into it.
I will
So
tell
I
you,
love that you said that.
sorry, I'm going to throw
No.
this out because I just had a meeting this morning with a client and we're just wrapping up the project and it was a full brand development project. And we were going through the exercise of what are the brand pillars and the brand values and sort of the core values that kind of serve as like the code of conduct in the company.
Yeah.
And empathy throughout our whole time of working together, empathy kept coming up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you think about making this part of your core values?
Yeah.
And it's in the forefront now. And it's an insurance company that we're working with. And you
Yeah.
don't really do that with
Yeah.
insurance companies. Like, even as just in our
You don't.
competitive research analysis and just looking at all the big boys and the smaller firms, and we're like, you know what? Nobody is really doing it on that level. This is the one other
Right.
thing that we can do to help differentiate you and really show people that you truly care. And that's whatever all the clients in that space, or the staff, I should say, when we tapped into them, everybody said, our owner cares. Our owner is
Yeah.
empathetic. Our owner understands. And so it really seems to be like this red thread. And I think it goes a really long way.
Yeah, it does. People can feel the difference whenever someone or a brand in particular practices empathy and it's part of the way in which they operate versus
Um,
when it's just something that, yeah, we can tell the
yeah.
difference. Okay, I've got another podcast recommendation for you. It's Augmenters, hosted by Julie Meyer and Jimmy Edgerton, and it's brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. So on this show, Julie and Jimmy dive into mentoring and explore ways to augment and refresh the mentoring environment. They're using 8 core principles that weave relevant spirit guides and diverse guests, and Julie and Jimmy use a lot of humor and practical tips to help mentors and mentees get further faster together. There's so many great episodes to tune into for this show, but one that you might find especially interesting is their latest episode, number 120, Mentoring Across Gender, Men as Allies and Mentors. Listen to Augmenters wherever you get your podcasts. So we kind of touched on belonging a little bit, but I would love to hear your thoughts on how brands can go about making more of the people they serve feel like they belong with them.
So I think it goes back to one, understanding who your customer base is. And it's likely
Mhm.
that depending on your business, you have a lot of different customer groups that you have to serve. And you have to serve them differently.
Mhm.
So I think understanding what their true needs are and who they are at the core. And a lot of that comes from collecting the data so that you can even
Yeah.
personalize some of that, right? So personalization is
Yeah.
another big driver actually on the emotional side. And whenever content or products or anything like that is personalized to who we are, we feel like this company knows who I am. This company cares about what I stand
Yeah.
for. And that's really difficult to do without having that data in place, right?
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think personalization is a really good way to make people feel like, hey, you belong here.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've covered a lot of really great ways of thinking about brand love, why it's important, how to build trust and authenticity and that emotional connection. But what is your advice for people who are like, all right, I want people to love my brand, especially those from underrepresented, underserved communities? Where do they get started?
Yeah, there's so much. I think it truly starts with going back to the drawing board and understanding who are we as a company? Why are we here to serve?
Yeah.
How do we exist beyond the transactions? Of course, as a business, everybody wants to make money. Everybody wants to be profitable. That's a no-brainer. But
Yeah.
even just beyond that, how do we go beyond transaction? What is really at our core important to us? What values do we reflect? And I think by understanding your customers and what they care about and knowing where you stand, on the opposite spectrum, and then just kind of figuring out how do we connect the dots between the two? How do we make sure that we
Hmm.
find the customers that resonate with what we believe in? Because not every customer is a good customer, right? Not all money is
Yeah.
good money. Is this, do you want the customer base that's supposed to engage with you or the ones that care for the right reasons?
Right.
So it takes a little bit of digging and searching and all of that and putting all of that together. It's like a puzzle piece. You find all these different
Right.
puzzle pieces and you're like, all right, let's put it together and this is what it's going to look like.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. No, I love how you're always starting with like the North Star of who are we, what are our values, and then going once you define who it is that you're serving, it kind of all flows from there.
yeah. It sounds so simple, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I think it's a simple framework and approach. Maybe not easy, but
Yeah,
like
yeah,
the pathway is there,
yeah.
right? So,
Yep.
all right. So I want to switch gears a little bit, and I'd love to hear from your experience as a consumer. Can you tell
Uh-huh.
me about a time when a brand made you feel like you belonged?
Yes. So it started out as a clothing jewelry brand out in LA, and it's evolved into a lifestyle brand. But over time, I've purchased a lot of different products, and one of them were maybe shoes, one of them
Mhm.
were like a sweater, and so I would receive the product in the mail. And the entire experience from looking it up on social or on the website all the way through to receiving the box or package in my hand was so emotional to the point where everything was all of the values were kind of stamped on the brand, right? Like you would really
Okay.
the feeling that you would get. It was I was
Yeah.
truly like I would open up the box, the tape itself around the box had all these inspirational messages that the brand
Yeah.
stood for. And so I would open up the box and I would open up, I would wear the sweater or take a look at the tag and all of that. And the tag on the inside, that you look at
Yeah.
how to wash your clothing item,
Right.
it had a message that said, "I'm so happy you exist."
Oh.
And I was like, it's just the detail,
Yeah.
it's being thoughtful.
Yeah.
And those are things that weren't necessarily promoted on the website or on social, even. But when I got the piece, it just made it so much more special because I could really feel that the designer put thought into this piece. And it made me feel special to have a piece like that. And so, again, it's just a simple message, but it's a message that truly, like, that just creates this feeling for you. And that's exactly what brands should be about. It's not
Yeah.
just about how can we enrich in your life with, our products, but also how can I make you feel the way I want to make you feel?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I love that so much because I think that so much of marketing is about feeling, and I don't think that
Mhm.
we spend enough time as marketers really thinking about how we want to make people feel and
Mhm.
then sort of reverse engineering everything else around along the customer journey to make sure we get there. So I just love that you highlighted that in that example. Beautiful example.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. And I think in general too, the multi-sensory, and this is, I don't want to go into a whole nother topic because we can talk about this for another half hour, but sort of just tapping into senses is really, really big in marketing. And I talk about this in the book, the multi-sensory marketing examples where you
Yeah.
have brands that touch on, that incorporate senses into the marketing. So whether it's,
Mhm.
the sound, the audio, reflecting who you are as a brand through audio, being intentional about the audio you create or choose. The scent,
Mhm.
scent is
Mhm.
extremely important, and those are the things that we take for granted because it's just so normal to us, right? But
Yeah.
connecting senses with marketing is also another way to tap into emotion and tap into memory.
Yeah. Yeah, very cool. There's so much science behind things, right? Like that
Yeah.
really help contribute.
Yeah.
Lydia, where can people find you if they want to learn more about you, your work, if they want to pick up your book?
Yeah. So our work, just blendedcollective.com. And me personally, lydiamichael.com. I also am all over social media, but very active on LinkedIn. So connect with me there. I share lots of marketing, culture, and brand insights all the time. So yeah, the book, the most important part. You can find the book anywhere where books are available. Amazon, of course, Kogan page on the publisher page. And some people who like to support independent bookstores, bookshop.org.
Nice. I will have all the information for how to find you and links to your book in the show notes. Lydia, this has been so much fun. We can, like you said, we can continue chatting about, so many different things and go off on so many tangents. Any parting words of wisdom for marketers and business leaders who want to do a better job of creating stronger emotional connections with all of the customers that they serve that lead to brand love?
Yeah, very simple. Always remember to stay human. So behind every purchase, behind every click, every interaction, there's a person. There's a person that you connect with when it comes to
Yeah.
their values and what they stand for and what they hope for. So be human.
Yeah. Very cool. Thanks so much, Lydia. This has been such a fun time.
Thank you, Sonia. It was fun being on here.
Lydia had so many cool things to share, and I'm super curious if there was anything in particular that stood out to you. Let's continue the conversation on social media, in the DMs, or feel free to shoot me an email as well. If you like this show, I would so appreciate it if you would share it with a friend, colleague, and or your network. It really does go a long way towards helping more people discover the show. Also, if you're enjoying the show, leave a rating and review for it in your podcast player of choice. That also goes a long way towards helping more people discover the show. And I like to think it also goes a long way towards helping more people practice inclusion. Another quick question for you. Are you getting the Inclusion and Marketing newsletter? If not, really, what are you even doing? Each week, I send news, insights, stories, and tips to help you build an inclusive brand that attracts and retains a diverse customer base. Go to inclusionandmarketing.com/newsletter to get signed up. Until next time, remember, everyone deserves to have a place where they belong. Let's use our individual and collective power to ensure more people feel like they do. Thanks so much for listening. Talk to you soon.